This is BBC News. I'm Christian Fraser, live from Buckingham Palace, where the King will lead today the first of 4 days of VE Day commemorations to mark the end of World War II in Europe.
It was the end of nearly 6 years of war in Europe. No wonder people went a bit crazy.
We will remember those who were there back in 1945, and we will be at events held right across the UK. And just as they did in 1945, thousands will line the streets here in London. There will be a Red Arrows flypast and a military procession, and we will be bringing it all to you live here on BBC News.
I'm Catherine Biarahanga in the studio. The other main news this hour. Israel's Security Cabinet approves a plan to launch a new military offensive against Hamas in Gaza. President Trump plans to hit all movies made in foreign countries with 100% tariffs. He says other nations are luring film crews with tax breaks.
If they're not willing to make a movie inside the United States, then we should have a tariff on movies that come in.
A return for Alcatraz. The American president orders the notorious island prison, which closed in the 60s, to reopen.
Hello from Buckingham Palace and a very warm welcome to this day one of a very special week of commemorations and celebrations marking the 80th anniversary of VE Day. The organised events this year all the more poignant because this probably will be the last major commemoration involving the few servicemen and women who are left, some of whom will be taking part today. The focus this afternoon will be on Whitehall in central London, where the cenotaph, always the focal point of remembrance here in the UK. The events begin when Big Ben tolls at midday, and at that moment we will hear the words of Winston Churchill, the same words that he delivered to the nation on May 8th to announce the end of the war and victory in Europe. His speech this afternoon will be read by the actor Timothy Spall, who played Churchill in the King's Speech. VE Day, not the end, of course, for everybody. Japan did not surrender in May 1945, and some would be sent to continue the fight in the Far East and the Pacific. But for people at home, the announcement by Churchill sparked a mixture of celebration, sadness, and overwhelming relief that finally the war was over.
Hostilities will end officially at 1 minute after midnight tonight, Tuesday, the 8th of May. We may allow ourselves a brief period of rejoicing. Today is Victory in Europe Day. Tomorrow will also be Victory in Europe Day.
And so, to honour and remember those who fought and fell during the Second World War, there will be a military procession here this afternoon. 1,300 members of the armed forces, led by the Household Cavalry and the King's Troop Royal House Artillery. They will march from Parliament Square, past the Cenotaph, beneath Admiralty Arch, up the Mall, to the dais, which has been built just here behind me around the Victoria Monument. That is where the King and the Queen will be watching, joined on stage by the other working royals, the Prince and Princess of Wales, the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, the Princess Royal, the Duke of Kent and the Prime Minister, and sitting among them a number of the veterans too. And the procession heading towards them really does span the ages. They'll be serving members of today's armed forces, the Royal Navy, the Royal Marines, the British Army, and the Royal Air Force, as well as cadets from all three services. And there will be other youth groups besides. But there among them, carrying the Commonwealth War Grave's torch for peace, will be Alan Kennett, a 100-year-old Normandy veteran, one of a dwindling number from that Second World War generation that are still with us.
The door burst open and all the lads shouted, you know, shut up. And he said, I've just come to tell you that the war's finished. And the whole place erupted then, of course, and it became a great party, you know.
And what party would be complete without the red arrows. The flypast this afternoon features 23 historic and current military aircraft. They'll be led by a surviving Lancaster bomber, one of only two still flying, and the Dakota, the two workhorses of the air campaign in 1945, followed by the Red Arrows and the RAF Typhoons. We'll have that live for you just after 1 o'clock here on BBC News. But this is not all about the events here in London. This is a national commemoration. It's a special bank holiday across the UK. So we'll be heading live throughout the day to the thousands of street parties, barbecues and picnics that will be taking place in each of the 4 nations. There'll be cream tea served on HMS Belfast today, now moored in the Thames. One of the first ships to open fire on D-Day, supporting the assault on the Normandy coast. And looking forward past today, because remember this is a prelude to 4 days of commemorations across the UK. There will be events in Edinburgh tomorrow night, in Belfast on Wednesday, events too in Wales where Cardiff Castle will be lit up in red, white and blue, culminating in a service of remembrance on Thursday the 8th here at Westminster Abbey, when the country will pause for 2 minutes of silence to mark the official 80th anniversary, and then finishing on Thursday night with a final concert in Horse Guards Parade. Zoe Ball will be leading that with the royal family in attendance. The younger royals, of course, always enthusiastically involved in those kinds of concerts. We've all manner of guests coming to join us through the day here at our position, but alongside me at Canada Gate this hour is the royal historian Robert Lacey. It's very good to see you. What a view we have.
Wonderful. And to think that the crowds that were here all those years ago, and of course the big difference between those crowds and the people today, it's wonderful you remembered the veterans who will still be here, but of course almost everybody here back in 45 had relatives who were still in Europe. I mean, the war had ended in Europe, but our troops were still out there, and as you said, Japan was still to come. And that was when I was doing my research and listened to Churchill's speech, I was struck in a way by the lack of celebration, by the fact that there was still Japan to come, how rude he was about the deceit and treachery of Japan. And of course, we didn't know at that stage that what was to come were the nuclear bombs and how that was going to change our lives forever.
Let's talk about the King, who's been very visible this last week, of course recovering from his treatment for cancer. But we know that through the various events that he will take part in, he's going to be evoking the words of his grandfather George VI.
The present King is obviously greatly influenced by his mother. But just as Prince William, Prince of Wales now, received his coaching for his future work from Queen Elizabeth II, there are many ways in which Prince Charles looks to the example of George VI, who voiced what modern constitutional monarchy is like. Another thing from the monarchical point of view about these celebrations is that it marked a new and very positive stage in the life of the royal family. In the 30s, there'd been the abdication. The monarchy was controversial. It was really the war that helped re-establish the bonds between the monarchy and the people.
The headline in the Times today is "No more distractions." So in a week, as you say, when we're marking service, togetherness, reconciliation, does the interview that Harry gave to the BBC last week overshadow how the King will want this to be observed?
I don't think it does overshadow, obviously, but I don't think the King will allow it to. What Prince Harry said was what he wanted to say. But he is no longer a working royal. I was very interested when you were talking just now, you talked about the working royals who will be here. In the old days, that balcony was just any old royal, Dukes of Kent and goodness knows where, sorry, with no disrespect to the Dukes of Kent and Gloucester. Now we have this new concept of working royalty. The monarchy is in a way a sort of ministry of concern and public expression, and everybody who will be up there will be paid by the taxpayer, but in return for that they put in their time, and that is progress. It's not what people would have expected, but we've now got the monarchy embedded in the structure of how we operate.
Robert, we're going to talk plenty more through the course of the morning. It's lovely to see you. We're going to focus over the next couple of hours in the preparations which are taking place here in central London. Things are starting to warm up, metaphorically as well. It's rather cold here actually today. I think a number of people who will be standing alongside the barricades to watch the parade might just get caught out after the warm weather we had last week. So if you are intending on coming later today, do bring a big coat and wrap up warm, because it is quite chilly here at the moment. We've seen behind me in the past, in fact you might just be able to pick them out if I just come out of the way, that the staff up there on the balcony where George VI waved to the crowds back on May 8th, 1945, they're just making the preparations, making sure that everything is in place, and of course the Royal Standard will be flying once the King arrives here at Buckingham Palace. He'll be sitting on this dais just over my right shoulder with the veterans in about, I would think, 2.5 hours' time. And you will see that live here on our special programme, which will bring you on BBC. Charlotte Gallagher has just joined me. Good morning. You've got rid of the big coat. That's quite brave.
Because it's my dog walking coat. And I'm not sure it gives the right attitude for VE Day, me wearing a massive puppet jacket that I used to walk my dog. So yeah, I've got the nice smart blazer on now.
Let's talk about the procession. It's a really interesting group of serving military personnel, but also a number of serving military figures from overseas.
It is. So the bulk of these 1,300 service personnel are going to be UK Armed Forces and also forces from the Commonwealth. But there's also going to be troops from the NATO alliance. They're going to be represented. So French, US soldiers, obviously Australia in the Commonwealth, Croatian soldiers, they're going to be in it as well. And also there's going to be a small number of Ukrainian troops. Now they're there to obviously represent the support that the UK gives to Ukraine, but also to symbolise that there is still conflict going on in Europe 80 years after VE Day happened.
The marching bands will be here from the Household Cavalry and the King's Troop. It will be a pretty spectacular event. Remind us, of course, the last time you and I were here together of the coronation. Who will be in the dais? So do you tell us around the King? Obviously the King and the working royals, as we said, will be there, but who else will be on the stage?
Well, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, will be there with his wife, I imagine. The Leader of the Opposition may be there as well, so Cammy Badenoch, she could be there as well. And really, what this day is all about is the veterans. So they will be front and centre. There will be a group of veterans sitting alongside the royal family, and some of them as well will be then going into Buckingham Palace. There's going to be a special tea party for them. Also some people that were evacuated as children, they've been invited to the tea party as well, because sadly this is probably the last significant anniversary that we're going to have where there's going to be a sizable number of these veterans, because of course the youngest are in their late 90s, some are over 100. So it's about honouring them, also hearing their memories and remembering those sacrifices they made then so we can live the lives we have now.
Charlotte, we'll talk plenty more through the day. Thank you very much for that. It's true actually what Charlotte says, isn't it? On a day like this we obviously like the pomp and the ceremony, but each and every one of us will have a memory and a thought of someone particular who served or who was overseas. And as Robert quite rightly said, although we mark VE Day as the end of the war, there were many of course now veterans who were still serving in Europe and would be moved from the European theatre out to East Asia and the Pacific, where they would continue the fight until August, when finally the Japanese did surrender. So we'll maybe get some thoughts from some of our guests through the day. Lots of thoughts and letters that we've seen on the BBC over the last week about what people went through, what their thoughts were on this particular day 80 years ago. Fairly nostalgic occasion for many of us over the course of the next 4 days. The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, who is due to attend today, has written an open letter to the veterans praising that selfless dedication, saying that they represent the best of who we are. We're going to hear from the Royal British Legion a little. In fact, I can just see somebody from the Royal British Legion. And with me, Mark Atkinson, the CEO of the Legion, is here. He's just coming to the point. I didn't know if you were here, but you've arrived just in the nick of time. Nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Thank you for coming. We were just talking about the role that the Royal British Legion will be playing today. Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, our job is to make sure that those Second World War veterans are right at the heart of today's commemoration. So they'll be sat here on the dais with members of the royal family. King Charles himself is the patron of the Royal British Legion. So we've been working with the palace to make sure that we get as many veterans as possible to be here front and centre.
What sort of reaction have you had from the veterans as you've been escorting them and helping them come here to London?
Yeah, lots of excitement. I mean, there's a bit of trepidation as well, but they're very excited to be here. I mean, it's 80 years. It's probably our last opportunity to pay tribute and to say thank you to them for their bravery and their service. But no, when I leave here, I'm going to go meet them all at the hotel and we'll travel here together with them. So they're very excited. And we put a big call out back in January for Second World War veterans to register. And we had a phenomenal response, including one veteran who's with us today, Henry Ducker, 104 years old. He's the oldest veteran with us today.
And where was he?
He was an RAF pilot. He was involved in the D-Day landings, and he's with us today, and it's incredible that he's going to be there.
And Alan Kennett, who we've talked about, who will be part of the procession, 100 years old. What I like about the procession, we were just talking about it with Charlotte, is the way that the modern touches with the past.
Yeah, I think so. So Alan will be in Parliament Square starting the procession, which will obviously come up to Buckingham Palace. So yeah, Alan will be right at the centre of those things. And so you're right, it's a moment for us all to come together, isn't it, and to pay tribute.
And then a very special event at Buckingham Palace a little later, they're off to a tea party.
Indeed. So as the military procession finishes, we'll go back into the palace, we'll watch the fly past, which is happening. Members of the royal family will come onto the balcony, and then there's a tea party hosted by the King, the Queen, other members of the royal family. So we'll all sit down, have tea, and hopefully some good conversations as well.
Wonderful. A word about the Legion, because obviously we all sort of think about the organisation around Remembrance Day, but tell us about some of the services you offer to the veterans through the course of the year.
So the Royal British Legions have been going for 100 years. We started in 1921, so the end of the First World War, and our job is to do two things. One, to bring the nation together to remember, but secondly, to provide support to veterans all year round, and not just Second World War veterans, such as those we're seeing today, but men and women who've served in much more recent conflicts, whether that's the Falklands, Bosnia, Kosovo, Iraq, Afghanistan. So we're there to provide that welfare support to veterans when they need it.
Mark, it's good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. I should just make a mention that the National Memorial Arboretum, they will be holding events there as well. Of course, there are a lot of memorials to all the various units, regiments and services that took part in the Second World War then through the course of the week. That will be a focal point of the commemorations as well. Let me just remind you that we do have a live page that will be running through the course of the day. That will have all the latest news of the special events and the coverage that's taking place across the UK. You can find that on the BBC News website and the app. We'll take a short break. We'll be back through the course of the morning around the world and across the UK. This is BBC News.
Hello, you're with BBC News. I'm Catherine Biarahanga. Israel's Security Cabinet has officially backed a plan to further expand the military offensive in Gaza. However, reports indicate it will only begin after Donald Trump's visit to the region later this month. The Israeli military is calling up tens of thousands of reservists in preparation for the expansion. Israel says the move is to pressure Hamas to release all the remaining Israeli hostages. The Houthis in Yemen have responded to Israel's new plans for Gaza, saying they will impose an air blockade on Israel by repeatedly targeting its airports. On Sunday, a missile fired by the group landed near Ben Gurion Airport, close to Tel Aviv. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed to strike back.
We will not tolerate it. We will take very strong action against them. And we always remember that they act with their patron Iran's direction and support. We will do what we need to do to take care of our security, to respond effectively, and to give Iran a due warning.
Well, let's cross live now to Jerusalem and our Middle East correspondent, Hugo Bashega, who's there for us. First of all, Hugo, let's go back to those plans for Israel to expand its military operations in Gaza. What do we know about its intentions and what it hopes to achieve there?
Yeah, we don't have details yet, but the Israeli authorities are saying that the goal here is to put pressure on Hamas to release the hostages who remain in captivity in Gaza. Up to 24 people are believed to remain alive after being kidnapped in the Hamas attacks in 2023. Now, critics of the government say that this is a failed strategy, that no hostage has been freed since Israel renewed its offensive against Hamas back in March. And this is particularly concerning for the families of the hostages, who have been urging the government to strike a deal with Hamas for the release of hostages. And I think there will be a lot of people questioning the true intentions of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for quite some time. Some critics, some opponents have been saying that he's prolonging the war in Gaza for political gains, to guarantee the survival of his government coalition. And we've also seen that this Israeli strategy of putting pressure on Hamas has included a ban on the entry of humanitarian supplies into Gaza. And we've seen accounts from aid organizations describing a catastrophic humanitarian situation in Gaza, with the majority of the population in the territory suffering from acute shortages of basic supplies. And they say that this is a strategy, this is a policy of starvation that could amount to a war crime, something that Israel has denied. But despite all this pressure on the Prime Minister, he hasn't given any sign that he's willing to change course in Gaza.
Hugo, thank you. That's our Middle East correspondent, Hugo Bashega, in Jerusalem there. Now, President Donald Trump has announced new tariffs on all films made outside the United States, claiming Hollywood was being devastated by a trend of American filmmakers and studios working abroad. He accused other countries of luring film crews with tax breaks, calling it a threat to national security. The move comes as the White House is under mounting criticism over its trade policies, which have seen Mr. Trump impose sweeping tariffs on countries around the globe. Writing on his Truth Social platform, he said, "I am authorizing the Department of Commerce and the United States Trade Representative to immediately begin the process of instituting a 100% tariff on any and all movies coming into our country that are produced in foreign lands." Well, let's get more on this now. We can speak to CBS correspondent Naomi Rackham. So, Naomi, just tell us, why is the president taking this move or making this move?
Well, Catherine, good to be with you. President Trump has been talking about this issue for years and his frustration about movie production moving overseas. And shortly before he took office, he announced that he had tapped some major actors to serve as special ambassadors to Hollywood to bring it back bigger, better, and stronger than ever. So it seems he's making good on some of those comments. Incentive programs for years have influenced where movies are shot, increasingly driving film production out of California and to other states and countries with favorable tax incentives, like Canada and the United Kingdom. The announcement of this 100% tariff comes as the White House is coming under mounting criticism over its aggressive trade policies that have seen Trump impose sweeping tariffs on countries around the world. China, who has taken the brunt of the president's combative trade policies with 145% tariffs on many goods, said last month that it would reduce the number of U.S. films it imported. Catherine?
And Naomi, briefly, do we know how they could be enforced, these tariffs?
Well, at this point, it's not really clear how the tariffs would or even could be enforced. It's worth noting that in President Trump's social media post, he did only mention taxes on movies. There was no mention of television series, which are, of course, an increasingly popular, profitable sector of production for the screen. Trump said that incentives that offer other countries, filmmakers, and studios constitute a national security threat. He noted the messaging and even called it propaganda. Catherine?
Naomi, thank you. That's Naomi Rackham there. You're watching BBC News. A reminder that we'll continue to bring you coverage on the celebrations to mark VE Day. That's the live shot there from the Mall in London. We'll be back with Christian Fraser outside Buckingham Palace in just a few minutes. Stay with us.